I have developed a lot of business plans, business models. I have analyzed a lot of airports. And finally, the question was always, what determines the business model? What is it? What is the main thing, the main issue that comes up when you think about airports? Well, we think about this. We think about the revenue and cost structure. We have high fixed costs and we have low fixed revenues, meaning high share of fixed costs needs to be covered by variable revenues. This is not a problem as long as the volume of the revenue driver is stable. This means in airport context that we have the traffic figures are stable and ideally slightly growing. But it's not only the volume, it's also the prices, so that the airport fees and the revenues in retail and other activities are also stable. So volume and prices need to be stable. And as long as these conditions are fulfilled, the airport business model is safe. But you see it already in the background. It's not like this anymore. We have on the cost side an increasing strong inflation. And this is even worse, the construction prices are much higher than inflation. We get higher capital costs. Cost volatility is increasing because of inflation. And finally, regulation. Well, it's not really finally, but regulation like safety, security investments need to be much higher. We need more resources to these areas. And due to the crisis and due to the pandemic, we also see that we have to invest more into sanitary measures. And if this was not enough, airport also needs to invest and spend a lot of resources in managing the green turnaround, meaning to get the airport carbon neutral as quick as possible and to contribute to a carbon neutral, environmental friendly aviation. So now we have done the cost side. On the revenue side, another 5 items for you. Volatility, as I just mentioned, increases. Not only because we get more prices, but also because airlines are much more flexible with regards to provide capacity or not, because they move the capacity quickly, and nowadays they are in a position to move their capacity quickly around. And if an airport, for instance, increases airport fees, like we just have seen in Berlin, they are quite easily ready to move the capacity to another airport. Retail spending, we have learned that the traditional retail spending is declining per passenger, and we have no idea about the future of car park. So, but what I have the feeling at the moment is that airports are trying to do a lot of things. So I just returned from the Passenger Terminal Expo last week in Paris, and there we saw that airport people and experts and consultants and industry players, they all deal with these issues. They understand that there's something to do, and we have the conference with a lot of different topics and streams on 3 days just to discuss. You see the speakers just to discuss the possibilities, the issues of airports. So we had the stream we had streams for where is it? We had the streams for advanced air mobility, which is a topic: airport design, planning and development, aviation security, border control, facilitation, commercial development and retail experience, customer service and passenger experience. By the way, still for me very interesting that retail experience and passenger experience are still treated in two different streams. It's the same passenger. So from a business perspective, a very complicated issue. Environmental and sustainability, technovation, airport cities, transport connections, regions, future airports, and airport management and recovery, all covered in 3 days. It was very hard for me as a business modeler. I'm interested what's going on anywhere, but I couldn't divide myself, so I selected the most important presentations to get a feeling. But my feeling was, okay, dealing with all these topics individually, separately, this is like This is like this, you know, like firefighting, like extinguishing a fire where it shows up, and then you get another one, because if you put wind there and somewhere it's burning, but everybody's focusing on her or his fire without seeing the whole incident, which is very important. And this is the same what we need to do in business modeling. And in this way, we need to assess all these individual business cases that are set up in the context of the overall airport business model. And for this reason, I have developed now a framework, a business framework, a business model framework that helps airports to really identify the right activities, the right allocation of resources, how to get the business model stable depending on the individual conditions and environment. And this looks like this. Let me show you the picture. This is what I propose. It's quite easy. So we need to organize our topics, right? We need to get clear what we have to do. So when we look at this now in this organized way, we have business opportunities. We need to work on the business opportunities. So that means we have aviation opportunities, non-aviation, real estate, green energy, and also mobility. Because mobility is not only having a train connection, mobility is to provide electrical charging, to provide the needs for the passengers for the mode of transport the passenger wants to use to get to the airport. Within these opportunities, that's the first thing. We have to look at how these business opportunities are related to each other, because they can support each other. So we have cross-fertilization effects. So aviation and non-aviation, it's clear, of course, aviation produces actually the consumers for non-aviation in a big way. But when we look at real estate gets tenants. Tenants have employees, and employees that work at the airport will also be commercially interesting, contributing to the non-aviation business, mainly to the land side or non-aviation business of the airport. Green energy can support the market position of the airport with regards to real estate development and aviation development and mobility, because you can provide green electricity for charging and so on. So we have to look at these cross-fertilization effects very closely. And did you know, aviation, we have the cost factors for security and safety, and also for power supply and utility supply. But these three cost items that are necessary conditions for aviation development are USPs for real estate development. There are not many locations that can provide 24/7 fire services, security, safe environment, medical services. So this adds on the price. So you can ask, the airport can ask for premium prices regarding to the average premium price of the location. So having done this, we look at the requirements and conditions. And here we have to look at all these things that are necessary to run the business. So the regulation, the environmental targets. So every airport, every area is different in this way. The capacity issues, the key performance indicators by the industry partners, by the airlines, the landside connectivity is in this area. And then if we have done this, we need to look at the resources. The resources are the land the airport has available, the infrastructure the airport has available, of course, the people that are available at the airport already, and how the market, the human resource market, and the education level is in this region. And finally, the funding power. That means the internal funding power, so how much money does the airport generate, the cash generation, the cash power of the airport on the one hand, and the readiness of the shareholders to invest in the airport. So once we have set up all this for the airport individually, the business opportunities, the requirements and conditions, and the resources, now we can play around with them. Now we know it, we know where the strengths and weaknesses are, we know where the opportunities and threats are, and now we can create our models to get this running. So business opportunities would come into the commercial model, cross-fertilization effects, all these things, volume price relation. This has to be done in a commercial model, and the definition, what is required to get a certain revenue and what are the risks. So we link here business opportunities with requirements, and conditions. On the other hand, the requirements are handed over to the capacity model. So, I moved a little bit in the wrong direction. So we have to look into the capacity model. So the capacity model, that means I need what do I need to provide a certain capacity at a certain quality to meet certain KPIs for a certain time. Is it better to have it to follow an investment construction way, or is it better to have a sort of operational capacity provision by having more people, by having more materials, by outsourcing some services, or maybe by using additional infrastructure that is already available in the city and in the region? Here, play around with the capacity and the possibilities this airport has. And once I have done my capacity and my commercial model together, I can look at the financial part. So what funding do I need? What are the cash returns? So is the whole commercial model and the capacity model actually economically viable? And all these three items together, the commercial, the capacity model, and the financial model together, this is now the business model framework. And based on this business model framework, the airport can develop its business plan. So that means to translate the business model into a long-term plan. That's about timing, that's about organization, that's a little bit more about strategy, how to do it actually, how to get it running. And it's the master plan of an airport. So the design issues, they have to be addressed here. And that's it. That's the organized way of getting the business model of an airport recalibrated. For this, we need to do some things. First, we need to check the airport's existing business model and to identify what happens when all these changes come through. We have shown 10 different changes on the cost and revenue sides, and now we play around how the business model of the airport is affected. So how the business plan is affected. Where are the sensitivities? Where are the borders? When, under which conditions will the current business model not be viable? This is the start to understand the pain areas where we really need to do something. This is the business model part. And then from the business model, we set up the business model framework, like the opportunities, like I said, the requirements, conditions, resources. We set this together, and then we do the commercial capacity, the financial model, the basis for it, the relations, the mapping, identifying the relation between these items, relation between opportunities, requirements, resources to get this running. This is one side we need. And of course, we need to get the people in. We need to get your people in. We need to get the people of the airport in. We need to get the people of the main stakeholders in. And in order to get the people in, it is very important to explain the business model of an airport. Because, we have a lot of experts. The non-aviation experts know everything about non-aviation, at least hopefully, but they have sometimes problems with understanding requirements and conditions of aviation, for instance. So everybody should understand the other side and all the other sides, because then we can release the power, the knowledge and the creativity of everyone to solve the overall problem of getting a viable business model. And this I can do with training. I've done a lot of trainings. I've done trainings from Munich Airport Academy. I'm a frequent lecturer at the Munich Airport Academy explaining airport business models. I've done this in Oman. I've done this in Nepal. I've done this in Vienna and in Malta. Really always explaining how an airport business model works. And afterwards, we always realize that once the people understand the overall business model and how her or his activity affects the others, then you get a common understanding. And having a common understanding reduces the amount of fights and actually releases the positive creativity of really changing the business model of the airport. So now we have the models, now we have the people enabled to do it, and now we come into the facilitation process. Because now we can go into the commercial model, capacity model, financial model, and we really can, by using these models, we really now, together with the people of the airport and the stakeholders, we can develop the business model together, and everybody will identify her or himself with this model. And that's the difference between if the problem stays with the company and the people of the company, be it employees, decision makers, stakeholders developed a new business model compared to the approach handing it over to a consultant, to a strategy consultant. So handing over the problem, that the consultant solves the problem and gives you the solution back. Because then normally the airport and the people have sort of an identification problem. Involving people is the key. Of course, when in the facilitation process, so when we get the people there and we provide this facilitation process, we need to get the people in, we need to get maybe some experts in, and we need to get examples in, how other airports have been doing this, how other industries have been doing this. So in my experience, what we did is a lot of simulation, examples, modeling, and some fact-finding or study tours to really get a good understanding how it could be, how it could look like. And that's it. So this is what I do. I do modeling, I do facilitation, and I do training. And this all to get the new recalibrated business model that helps the airport to address and to manage the 10 or even more different areas the airport now has to address. Thank you for your attention. That's it.